Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Channel Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajakacharya Astuttara Satyashi Shrimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premananda. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 9, verse number 13. Sarve yami vidikaras satvadamno Brahmadayo vayam iveshanacho vijanta Kshemaya bhutaya utatma sukaya chasya Vikriditam bhagavato ruchiravatare Sarve yami vidikaras satvadamno Brahma Dayovayam Iveshanacho Vijantaha Shemaya Bhutaya Utatma Sukaya Chasya Vikriditam Bhagavato Ruchiravatare Sarvehami Vidikaras Satvadamno Brahmadayo vayam iveshanacho vijantaha Shemaya bhutaya utatma sukaya chasya Vikriditam bhagavato ruchiravatare
सर्वे हि यामि विधिकरास्तव सत्त्वधाम्नो ब्रह्मादयो वयमिवेश न चोद्विजन्ता क्षेमाय भूताय हुतात्मसुखाय च विक्रीडितं भगवतो रुचिरावतारे
सर्वे हमे विधिकरस्तव सत्त्वधाम्नो भयं निवेशन चो विदन्ता Sarve, all, he, certainly, Ami, these, Vidhikara, executors of orders, Tava, your, Sattvadana, being always situated in the transcendental world, Brahma Adaya, the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma, Vayam, we, Iva, like, Isha, O my Lord, Na, not, Cha, and Udvijantaha, who are afraid of your fearful appearance. Kshemaya, for the protection. Bhutaye, for the increase. Uta, it is said. Atmasukaya, for personal satisfaction by such pastimes. Cha, also, asya, of this material world. Vikriditam, manifested. Bhagavata, of your lordship. Ruchira, very pleasing. Avatare, by your incarnation. O my, translation by Srila Prabhupada. O my Lord, all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma are sincere servants of your lordship, who is situated in a transcendental position. Therefore, they are not like us, Prahlad and his father, the demon Hiranyakashipu. Your appearance in this fearsome form is your pastime for your own pleasure. Such an incarnation is always meant for the protection and improvement of the universe. Repeat after me. O my Lord, all the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma, are sincere servants of your lordship, who are situated in a transcendental position. Therefore, they are not like us. Prahlad and his father, the demon Hiranyakashipu. Your appearance in this fearsome form is your pastime for your own pleasure. Such an incarnation is always meant for the protection and improvement of the universe. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Prahlad Maharaj wanted to assert that his father and the other members of the family were all unfortunate because they were demoniac, whereas the devotees of the Lord are always fortunate because they are always ready to follow the orders of the Lord. When the Supreme Lord appears in this material world by his various incarnations, he performs two functions, saving the devotee and vanquishing the demon. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chiduskritam. Lord Nishingadev, for example, appeared for the protection of his devotee. Such pastimes as those of Nishingadev are certainly not meant to create a fearful situation for the devotees, but nonetheless, the devotees, being very simple and faithful, were afraid of the fierce incarnation of the Lord. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj, in the following prayer, requests the Lord to give up his anger. Om Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitangena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Shivam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivishakan Vitamcha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanshakapatrubhyascha Kripasindubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so Prabhupada's purport begins that Prahlad wanted to assert that his father and the other members of the family were all unfortunate because they were demoniac. So that's there's only one good fortune. The good fortune is to surrender to Krishna, and the essence of all bad fortune is to be demoniac. Demoniac doesn't mean you have to be like Hiranyakashipu, but it means who just, or King Vena. King Vena just was so cruel that when he was a kid, he would go out to play with his friends and kill his own friends. And so you don't have to be that bad to be a demon, but the essence of the meaning of being a demon is to desire to be independent and independent of Krishna. And that's everything else flows from that original desire. All other, it may be a big demon like Hiranyakashipu, or a small demon like just the average person in the material world who just doesn't have much or can't do much, but any desire separate from the desire of Krishna is called is the meaning of being demoniac, and it's like in the Christian language, it's sin. Sin is the same meaning. Comes from a German word, absonder, means to separate and separate from someone. So the essence of sin is to want to be separate from God. And that's the meaning of being a demon also. So big demon or little demon, everyone, all the conditioned souls in the material world are in the category of being demoniac. And so and Prabhupada said various things. One thing he said that was very important was that most of the people are innocent, and but they're being misled by demoniac rulers, and so we find that in the United States now we have a demoniac ruler, and but anyways, the yeah, so that's the essence of being a demon. And that's the meaning of being unfortunate. You may seem to, oftentimes people complain that in the material world, you can see that, often see that, people who are are very well off materially with money and power and fame. Oftentimes they're acting in like very demoniac ways, very cruel, and people wonder, well, if it's bad to be, if there's God and it's bad to be sinful and a demon, but our experience is that a lot of times these sinful people, they seem to be enjoying material prosperity. There was one book in the United States in the 70s. It was a popular book. It was written by a rabbi, it's a Jewish priest, a Jewish rabbi. And the title of the book was "Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People?" And so it's the opposite. We see that a lot of times so-called good people, so-called good people by material standards, they often suffer great misfortune. And so he's a rabbi, he's a spiritual teacher, but his conclusion, the question in the book was, why do bad things happen to good people? And his conclusion or essential part of the book was that either God is not all powerful, he'd like to have all the good people be happy, but he can't quite manage it, or or God is cruel. So I think his conclusion was, he is a rabbi. I think his conclusion was that yeah, God is God, but he's not all powerful, and so it's a ridiculous conclusion. It's a but it does get at a question that so many people have. Why do bad things happen to good people, so-called good people, and why do so many good things seem to happen to very nasty people, who appear to be very demoniac? Anyway, it's a very complicated thing, the mixture of whatever a person's karma is. The rich person who's acting demoniacally, somehow he had some pious activities in a past life, and so he has some apparent good fortune in this life, and seems to be is enjoying by material standards. And so the good person who's suffering, yeah, he has some good tendencies or some godly tendencies, but he has some karma from past lives, so has some suffering too. If you don't have any acceptance or belief or understanding of the laws of karma and transmigration of the soul, then it remains a mystery. Like, why do bad things happen to good people? It's a big mystery. It's a question that the Christian churches, they come up with some kind of answers, but they can't have any satisfactory answer to that question because they don't have the conception they don't believe in the transmigration of the soul or the laws of karma. There's that famous example that Prabhupada gave when he was in Scottish Churches College when he was a young man, and of course he's a pure devotee from birth, and his teachers were all Scottish Catholic or Protestant ministers or clergy, or anyway, Protestant scholars. They were all upright Christian men. And one of his professors gave the example in the question about the Hindu beliefs in class. And he said that you Hindus believe that we're suffering from past lives, but where's the witness? There's no witness. You can't be convicted in a court of law without a witness. And Prabhupada knew it was a ridiculous assertion, but he didn't say anything at the time. But the obvious answer is that Krishna is the witness of everything. The sun is the witness, the moon is the witness, the 10 directions are the witness. There are witnesses everywhere, and of course, Krishna in the heart is the witness of everything. So with that understanding, then it's very easy to understand why bad things happen to good people. In the material world, no one is good. Prabhupada strongly asserts in many places. I heard him say recently in an audio lecture, he said that material world, everything is bad. Nothing is good. Which is, and he said it more strongly than I said it there. When Prabhupada says something strongly, it's really powerful. It's really strong. And he said, everything is bad. Nothing is good. And so the materialists will say, oh, that's a ridiculous statement. There's so much good and wonderful things in this world. And how can you possibly say that everything is bad, nothing is good? But it's bad because we're still, whatever it is that appears to be good or is only surface good or good by material standards, and sometimes a tinge of some spiritual goodness. But everything, whatever keeps us bound to the material world is bad by definition. If there's something happening that happens to you in prison, and all it does is it keeps you in prison longer, then it's bad, and that's the of course, a big problem with sense gratification, pleasure, so-called pleasure from sense gratification. There is a little bit of thrill. It's not pleasure. There's very little actual pleasure in the material world. There's a little bit, but very little. But what people call pleasure is generally just like some momentary sensation of thrill or just some sense gratification. And we're so starved for happiness in the material world that we're willing to accept whatever crumbs we get of happiness in the material world, and we call that pleasure. But by the spirit Krishna conscious standards, it isn't pleasure. It's not even on the scale of pleasure. We accept it as pleasure. And there's that example of the verse in the Bhagavad Gita that when a person ceases material activities by experiencing a higher taste, and that's the essence of Krishna conscious pleasure. It's a higher taste, and the material the example is that if a person is starving and somebody comes to him and gives him an old, like, rotten apple, some rotten piece of fruit, but he's been starving for so long, he'll take that rotten piece of fruit and eat it with what seems to be pleasure. But if somebody comes along and offers him a big feast of puris and sabji and all kinds of sweets and everything, then the person will easily throw away the old rotten piece of fruit and he'll take the higher taste. So the higher taste is only found in Krishna consciousness. And whatever appears to be happiness in the material world is only a furtherance uh, uh, of our bondage in the material world, the prison house of the material world. So we have a very low standard of what we call happiness in the material world. But as devotees, we have the highest standard of happiness. Even a very new devotee, and we're all new devotees, but even a very new devotee will be happy in Krishna consciousness, and that's one. I like this story. It's from Seattle, Washington. It's on the west coast of the United States, above California, north of California, and one of the early temples, very early temples, was there, and Prabhupada visited there in 1968. And one conversation he had with one of his disciples, one girl, young girl, just a hippie teenager, fresh out of material life, no idea of Krishna consciousness at all until very recently, and maybe a month, maybe a few months, maybe a year. And Prabhupada asked her, are you happy now that you're chanting Hare Krishna? And she said, oh yes, Prabhupada, Swamiji. Oh yes, Swamiji, I'm very happy now that I'm chanting Hare Krishna. And he told her, then that's all you have to do. You just have to tell people, the people you preach to, all you have to do is tell them that I wasn't happy before I was chanting Hare Krishna, and now I'm happy. And that's perfect preaching. He said that's all you have to do, because ultimately that's all everybody wants. All anybody wants is to be happy, and so if they see, and that's what I saw the first time I saw the devotees in 1970 in the summer. I saw them out in a big Harinam Sankirtan in downtown Boston on a Saturday night, and I could see that they were happy on a Saturday night after a week of work. Everybody's out in the city trying to be happy with sense gratification, but their purpose is to be happy. So there's thousands of people out there on the street. Everybody's trying to be happy, but the only people who looked happy were the devotees who were chanting and dancing in kirtan. They looked actually happy. They attracted a big crowd, and I went up and watched with everybody else, and it was amazing. It was amazing. And young Americans, they looked like me, except they didn't dress like me or have their hair like me. Everybody had shaved heads and wearing dhotis and saris. The women didn't have shaved heads, not everybody, but they were wearing saris, and they were all young. They looked like me and looked like everybody else out on the street. There are no Indian devotees in the Boston temple, At that time, it was all local kids from in and around Boston, all young, crazy, hippie Americans. But now they were completely different. And and Prabhupada says in one purport, he says that people see the American and European devotees dancing on the street like jubilant peacocks, and he said, and they wonder, are they Americans? And that's what I wondered when I first saw the devotees dancing and chanting. I'm like, oh, yeah, they look like Americans, but they not like any American that I've ever known. They're not like me, but they look like me. And so that it's like that because they're experiencing actual happiness in Krishna consciousness. Although they're all new devotees, the oldest one of them could only have been 4 years in surrendered to Krishna from 1966 to 1970. It's only 4 years. So the oldest devotee could only have been 4 years in Krishna consciousness. And most of them were like 6 months or a week or maybe a year, maybe 2 years. They were all very new devotees, very new devotees. But they were clearly different from everybody else. So that's the difference between the devotee and the demon. Everybody else there out on the street, I'm sure they were thinking, oh, I'm a good person. I worked hard all week making money to take care of my family or do this or do that. I'm a good person. All I want is a little sense gratification. They don't call it sense gratification. All I want is a little happiness on the weekend before I have to go back to work on Monday. And that's all. I'm not asking for much. All I want is a little happiness. But they weren't happy. But they're not happy. But the devotees were happy. And so that's the higher taste, and that's the difference, an essential difference between the devotee and the demon or the non-devotee. There's no, in the ultimate issue, there's no demons or no non-devotees. Everyone is a pure spirit soul, devotee of Krishna, but they're acting, but they've forgotten that they're devotees, and they're resisting, and they don't want to become devotees again. They don't want to go back to their original spirit constitutional position as Krishna's surrendered servants. So that puts them in the category of demon, but ultimately no one is a demon. Everyone is everyone is a pure spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. And that's why Lord Chaitanya came as the incarnation in this age of Kali, just to make it as easy as possible for the demons to turn into devotees. And it's proven all over the world by our practical experience, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada and the whole disciplic succession to Lord Chaitanya, and of course back to Krishna. So it's proven, and Lord Chaitanya made it as easy as possible for people, and it's so easy that all you have to do is chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and that's the beginning. And then after doing that for a little while with some sincerity and some devotion, the heart starts to be cleansed, and the devotion to Krishna starts to reawaken in the heart. The devotion is there. It's just in a dormant condition in everyone. And so as soon when that starts to awaken, then people gradually, or quickly sometimes, but generally gradually, they want to start following the rules and regulations of devotional behavior. They want to act like devotees. They want to become fully devotional in their mind, in their senses, in all their activities. So, when a little pure, and that's a statement, but I'm not sure who it's from, but Yena Kena, anybody can say Pracharena Mana Niveshayat. Just in the beginning, just get everyone to chant the holy name. And the rules and regulations come later. Some people take to Krishna consciousness very quickly. I know Satsvarup Maharaj, who's my second initiating spiritual master, he met Prabhupada in the summer of 1966, and along with this, all the early devotees there, he met him, and he saw a notice on the window of the Matchless Gifts store, and of course then it was taken over, but all the Matchless Gifts were taken out of the window, and now it was the Hare Krishna temple. There was no sign that said that, but but Prabhupada had put a notice on the window saying lectures on Bhagavad Gita Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evenings at 6 or 7 o'clock. So he saw that notice in the window, because that 26 Second Avenue was right around the corner from where he lived in New York City. He had a little apartment there. And and as soon as he went to the first lecture, the first class by Prabhupada, and from that night on, he gave up all sinful activities and started chanting Hare Krishna and following all the rules and regulations, the four regulative principles. Of course, they didn't know all the rules and regulations. There are so many, but and Prabhupada introduced more rules and standards of behavior gradually as time went on. But from the first night, he started following the regulative principles and chanting Hare Krishna regularly. And there are many cases like that. But generally, people take more time. I know I took more time, and but the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is effective in everyone. And so in the beginning, just get everyone to chant Hare Krishna, and they begin their path back home, back to Godhead, and they receive Lord Chaitanya's special mercy, Lord Nityananda's mercy, and the mercy of the whole Guru Parampara, and everyone, they begin their path back home, back to Godhead, back to pure devotional service. So that's but the process of Krishna consciousness has to be very easy in the age of Kali, because everyone in Kali Yuga is so unfortunate, so disqualified, so many sinful activities, so much bad behavior, that the Krishna has to make the Yuga Dharma in Kali Yuga has to make it as easy as possible, like for little kids. If you have a classroom of little kids, like 3-year-old kids, and to the 20 or 30 kids in the class, and the teachers, they're running around the classroom talking and laughing and playing and fighting or whatever, and the teacher's trying to get them under control to begin the class. And if the teacher says, "All right, children, now sit down at your desk and open your book to page 85 and read that page, and then write a 2-paragraph essay on that page." Well, they can't do that. They're 3-year-old kids, and all they want to do is run around and laugh and play. They can't do that. That'd be impossible. But if the teacher says, "Okay, children, now everyone get in a circle and hold hands. We're gonna dance around the room in a circle, and we're gonna sing a song, A B C D E F G," then they can do that, and they'll like doing that, and they'll learn the alphabet by doing that very quickly. So that's what Kali Yuga is. We're all like little wild children who can't do anything serious. Of course, some devotees are extremely. I'm not trying to say that no devotees could. There are many disciples of Prabhupada and present devotees who become very serious and learn Sanskrit and all the rituals and deity worship. But overall, the people in Kali Yuga, we can't do anything difficult. We have to have the easiest way possible to become Krishna conscious. And so we can take a mridanga and kartals and have a kirtan and chant and dance, and anyone can do it. Anyone can, even a child can take part in the chanting, or even a dog can take part in chanting. That has to be very, very, very simple. So, and Prabhupada says there, the devotees of the Lord are always fortunate because they are always ready to follow the orders of the Lord. So we're the most fortunate people in the universe. It's just we have the good fortune, the great fortune, the incredible, amazing good fortune of having come to the pure devotees of the Lord, taking shelter of them, chanting Hare Krishna, and being serious about surrendering to Krishna. There can't be any fortune, any good fortune that's higher than what we have in this room, right here at this very moment. We're the most fortunate people in the universe, and all the devotees in all the temples all over the world. But so we're the most fortunate. And why are we? The reason that we're the most always fortunate is because we're always ready to follow the orders of the Lord. Follow the orders of the Lord means surrender to the Lord. We always talk about surrender. That's our constant struggle, our constant endeavor, our constant mission in life is to surrender to Krishna. We understand from Prabhupada, from Guru, that we haven't been surrendered up until now. We haven't been surrendered. But now we're taking Krishna consciousness seriously, and we're actively in the process of surrendering. And it's a process. Yeah, and and people often the question is, one question that devotees ask is, well, what does it mean to surrender? What does it mean to surrender? And one devotee I heard give class one time several years ago, he said, the first thing in surrender is like if two armies are fighting, or and one side is obviously being defeated, then they surrender. And what's the act of surrender? They bring out a white flag and they stop fighting. The first part of surrender, the crucial part, is to stop fighting. And then it can progress from there. And I heard Prabhupada say in audio recently, he said he gave the simplest definition of surrender that you'll ever hear, but it's the most essential. It's the essential meaning of what surrender is. He said, surrender means when you begin to say yes to Krishna. Being a conditioned soul means we've been saying no to Krishna. We're pure spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. Our duty, our nature, our eternal Sanatan Dharma is to say yes to Krishna and do whatever Krishna wants. But we've been fighting against that for millions of births, saying when Krishna wants us to do something, we say, no, I'm not going to do that. And so Krishna's attitude is, okay, well, if you refuse to do that, that's your right. You're part and parcel of me, and you have that little bit of freedom, whether to serve me willingly or to not serve me willingly. You'll always be my servant. As Prabhupada said that, and I remember coming to the temple in the beginning. I remember that after the kirtan, everyone would bow down flat on the floor, all the men and all the women. Back then, they used to bow down flat on the floor too, and I was amazed. Like as soon as the kirtan would end, everybody just bang right on the floor, like and. I had never seen anybody bow down before. This in the United States, nobody bows down. Nobody is considered. That would be considered if you bow down to somebody. It would be considered like, oh, you have such a low opinion of yourself that you're willing to be grovel in the dirt before this other person. That's how it's looked on in the United States. And of course, I didn't see it like that, but I was amazed. I was like, whoa, I'd never seen anybody do this before. And actually, I'm ashamed to say that it took me a month of going to the temple before the first time that I offered my obeisances and bowed down with everybody else. And anyway, but to bow down to Krishna, to bow down to Krishna's representative is the most natural thing in the world. It's a sign of, it is a humble position, but it's not a degraded position. That's how the materialist sees it. They see it as you're degrading yourself but you're actually exalting yourself by accepting your humble position and bowing down before Krishna and Krishna's representative. Yeah, so the meaning of the essential bottom line bedrock definition of surrender is we stop saying no to Krishna and we start saying yes. And that's why one thing I remember the first time I came to the temple, we were taking prasadam, and the temple president asked this one brahmachari, he said, Prabhu, can you serve out the prasadam? And the devotee said, do I have hands? Meaning, of course I'll serve out the prasadam. I have hands. And it's a great honor to serve out prasadam to the devotees. So that really impressed me. That there's a very basic, simple example of someone who was asked to do something by the temple authority, the temple president, and he immediately said, yes, of course I'll do it. So anyway, that's that's why the devotees are always fortunate, because they are always ready to follow the orders of the Lord. And then Prabhupada talks about paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam. It appears in every millennium to protect the devotees and to vanquish the demons. Of course, Hiranyakashipu is a prime example of that. He came his pure devotee Prahlad Maharaj was being tortured by his own father. His own father tried in so many ways to kill his little son. It doesn't get any more demoniac than that. And so Lord Nrsingadev finally came, and he's like, "I've had enough of this. I'm coming myself, and I'm gonna put an end to this right now." And so he burst out of the pillar, and he went to Hiranyakashipu, and he ripped him open with his nails and wore his intestines around his neck like a garland, and but his so he accomplished both things at the same time. He killed the demon, and he protected Prahlad at the same time. So he's a perfect example of that verse. And of course, Prabhupada explains in many places, he says that those are Krishna's purposes, but Krishna doesn't have to come himself to kill the demons. He can create one earthquake or tsunami. They had a tsunami several years ago, and something like 750,000 people were killed in I don't know, 10 minutes. So Krishna doesn't have to come himself to kill the demons. Any demigod can, like Indra made it rain in Vrindavan. If Krishna if he'd done that somewhere else, and Krishna hadn't been there to lift Govardhan Hill, then all the residents of whatever town it was would have been killed, would have drowned immediately. So many. So Krishna doesn't have to come himself to annihilate the demons. And he can do that with a snap of his fingers or by his smallest whim, kill millions of demons. But he does have to come personally to protect his devotees. He doesn't, of course, Krishna doesn't have to do anything, but he feels that I have to go. Krishna feels that I have to go personally and protect my devotee. So that's the real meaning of the real essential point of that verse, Paritranaya Sadhunam, not so much Vinashaya Chaduskritam. So, and Prabhupada ends the pastime purport by saying, such pastimes as those of Nrsingadev are certainly not meant to create a fearful situation for the devotees, but nonetheless the devotees, being very simple and faithful, were afraid of the fierce incarnation of the Lord. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj in the following prayer requests the Lord to give up his anger. And that's the way it was. All the demigods were there, and Mother Lakshmi was there, and Lord Nrsingadev's consort. But all the demigods were afraid to go approach Lord Nrsingadev. He was still exhibiting his ferocious nature after killing Hiranyakashipu and all Hiranyakashipu's soldiers too. And he was, after it was all done, he was still in a very displaying a very angry mood. So the demigods, they pushed Prahlad forward because they knew that he could approach Lord Nrsingadev without any fear. And so this is where we are right now, where Prahlad Maharaj has gone forward to Lord Nrsingadev, and he's offering prayers. He's a simple little child, and he wasn't afraid to go to Lord Nrsingadev. And Lord Nrsingadev, of course, was very gentle with him. Okay, well, I think, does anyone have any, is that long enough? Does anyone have any questions or comments, any contribution?
Thank you for the wonderful class.
Thank you for listening.
When we go to preach for to first year, sometimes it is very discouraging if they don't reciprocate. We
Yeah.
become depressed. What should we do in such a situation?
Oh, well, patience requires, preaching requires great patience. I just heard Prabhupada talking about that in a lecture yesterday. It said that when Prabhupada preached, came to the United States, first of all, he was preaching in India for many years and he wasn't getting anywhere. He would, like he says, sometimes I would go to a man who had 5 sons, and I would ask him, just give me one of your sons, and I'll train him as a Brahmin, and he can travel with me and preach with me. And nobody wanted to do it, and uh, some of the sons might have been would probably have been willing to do it if they were given the opportunity. They would have seen it as a big adventure, but none of the fathers wanted to let that happen. And and when Prabhupada, so he tried for many years preaching in India, but he wasn't getting very far. Of course, he was having some nice results here and there, but he really wanted to establish something, the League of Nations, League of Devotees, and have it become a big movement like ISKCON. And that's what he wanted. And he tried there, but it wasn't successful. And when he came to the United States, for the first year, he was just wandering alone in New York City. It's like, no, nobody just wants to be. He was effectively homeless. He had a place he could stay because of impersonalist yogi, Dr. Mishra, who liked him and gave him a place to stay in his in an apartment. But basically, he was homeless, and for a year, and then finally, after a year of struggling alone, and he said at that time, I'm. It was so difficult, but I'm not a man to be easily discouraged. And so, it requires great patience to preach. He was preaching among completely ignorant people, or just crazy, wild people. I mean, not so crazy, not so wild, but by Vedic standards, crazy, wild people, and and in some cases, literally crazy and wild people. And there's one devotee who is a sannyasi now in ISKCON, and he moved into the temple. He was a bhakta when I was a bhakta in 1976 in the Boston temple. And he started going to Prabhupada. He's in the Lilamrita lawn. And he started going to Prabhupada at 26 Second Avenue in 1966. And he was going regularly, and Prabhupada liked him. And he offered him a dhoti. He said, come, move in, live with us. But he was still too wild. And he told me how he was back then. He was pretty wild. And but then he finally, after 10 years, he said, he's like, I've had enough of this. And he moved in the temple, and ever since he's been a great ISKCON servant. He was given the name Prabhupada Das, and for the last 50 years, he's been extremely actively serving Prabhupada in his mission. But anyway, that's what Prabhupada was dealing with in the United States. And so, yeah, and I heard Prabhupada talking about that. You don't expect everyone, you don't expect good results right away, but just look at all the fine young men here who are sincere, hardworking ISKCON servants, and just really, really good devotees. But even a few years ago, I don't know how long everybody here has been serious about Krishna consciousness, but it's not very many years. And before that, you were just like everyone else that you're preaching to now. And so yeah, it just the point is, it just preaching requires a lot of patience. When you get somebody who's ready to come and take Krishna consciousness seriously right away, you should be really happy. We are really happy, but we're actually kind of surprised because it's not the usual thing. The normal thing is to not take Krishna consciousness extremely seriously very quickly. Yeah, so you should never be discouraged. And there's that one story I like of one, I tell it all the time. It's a very short story. But one lady, disciple of Prabhupada, was talking, had a meeting, darshan with Prabhupada, and she said, Prabhupada, I'm trying to be a good devotee. I'm trying to do everything, but I'm struggling, and sometimes I get discouraged in my devotional practices. And Prabhupada said to her, "There's a very important thing that you should never forget." She said, "Sometimes I feel discouraged," and Prabhupada said, "Oh, discouraged? That is not allowed. You're not allowed to be discouraged." And in material life, people get discouraged, people get depressed, people do all kinds of things that people, and because the material world is just beating you down and beating you down, it's pretty hard not to get discouraged in material life. But in Krishna consciousness, that's not allowed because everything is hopeful. We're going back to Godhead, and we're helping so many other people, hundreds and thousands and millions of people all over the world are being helped right at this moment to go back home, back to Godhead. So, and so how can we be discouraged? That is not allowed. And don't be discouraged. Yeah. Prabhupada's point was that preaching requires great patience. Is anything else? Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you so much for
Krishna.
wonderful class. The question I wanted to ask you, like you were mentioning in the lecture, many of Prabhupada disciples were very serious from starting only.
Yeah.
So, like now only, what are the driving force behind their seriousness? Like gratitude and resentful for our past life, maybe overwhelmed by our other desires. So, how can we also be sincere like that? Yes.
Yeah. Well, obviously you're serious. Obviously everybody here is very serious. And so, uh, uh, yeah, well, with the course of time, Krishna cleanses the heart. The chanting the holy name, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Vavamaha Davagni Nirvapanam. The holy name cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for many millions of births in the material world. So it's a it's a cleansing process, and so all the negative qualities that we have, all the whatever bad intentions, envy, lust, greed, all the negative things that we have in our heart from so long being conditioned souls in the material world, all those will be gradually cleansed. and become less and less over the course of time. And all the godly qualities of determination and seriousness and humility and willingness to surrender, all the good qualities, the godly qualities will, they're all there in the heart of every condition, of every spirit soul. So those will come out more and more. Those will be seen more and more. Like a example is a diamond who's encrusted with a thick layer of dirt, and so you can't see the diamond at all. And when you start to scrape away the dirt or cleanse it with tools, and then you use water and you cleanse it, and more you begin to see the diamond. The diamond, and ultimately the diamond is there alone, and it's beautiful and pure and shining. So that's all. That's the same thing is happening in the heart of every devotee. Every devotee, the bad qualities are being cleansed, and the essential spiritual nature of the soul is beginning increasingly to shine more and more. It's really as simple as that. All you have to do is same thing. It's always the same answer. Just continue to do the basic standard practices of Krishna consciousness. And when you go to any teacher in any discipline, music or sports or science or IIT studies, as soon as you go to any course, the teacher starts giving you basic standard instructions about how to proceed in that discipline. And you're serious, and you do it, and you progress in that discipline. And it's like not, in a sense, automatically, but and in Krishna consciousness, it's definitely automatic. It's like you might want to play the piano really well, or the sitar, or whatever instrument. You might want to play it really well, and you may work really hard at it, but you may not have any talent. You might never become a great player of that instrument. It might not be in you in this life from your previous karma. But everyone has the tendency to become a pure devotee in him. Everyone is a pure spirit soul. So everyone has the ability, and it will inevitably take place just by the purification, the cleansing process of chanting the holy name, associating with devotees, reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, taking prasadam, going out to preach, the standard activities of Krishna consciousness. Okay. All right, so I think we can stop there. And Mother Devahuti.
In Papa Prabhupada was mentioning that devotees are fortunate because they are always ready to follow order.
Yeah.
But we are dealing with the demon inside only, so
Yeah.
our mind, our mind creates the misfortune.
Yeah.
So how to remain determined that we should be always ready to follow? Because sometimes we think, oh, we are doing bhakti, we are doing 16 rounds, we are following, and then slight negligence creates a bad accident.
Yeah.
So how to get that determination? How to remain careful that we should not think, oh, I'm already following so much, I'm fortunate soul.
Yeah.
And then
it's like when you're driving a car, you can't take off your eyes off the road for a moment, because accidents happen like really fast. I went to, me and a friend, we weren't living in the temple yet. In 1972, we drove down to New York City because Prabhupada was there. And after he gave his greeting, darshan, gave a class. Then there was an announcement that there would be a big kirtan down in this some famous place right in downtown New York, where thousands of people would be. And so I went. Took some devotees in my car. Wasn't my car. It was my father's car, and we were driving to get to the kirtan. And we were going on this highway, and I took my eyes off the road for like 2 seconds, and in half a second, it was just bang. And that's how fast traffic accidents happen. So you have to be always vigilant, and you have to always keep your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel, and you have to stay awake, and you have to be very attentive. I'll tell you just a little story of when I was a bhakta. When I first moved in the temple, and it was Gaur Purnima day, and so we went through the morning program, and then the temple president had rented a big flatbed truck, and we were all supposed to get on the truck. Oh no, that's a different one. This is I got mixed up. This is the same day, but earlier, after class, the temple president took all the brahmacharis out. There was probably like 15 or 20 men in the front hall of the Boston temple, and he was saying, okay, we need some volunteers to go down to the kitchen and help cut up vegetables to get ready for the feast. And so he was looking for volunteers. And I was a new man. I considered myself pretty good. I'd been there for a few months in the temple, and I thought I was pretty advanced. And it's called... And so he asked for volunteers, and I tried to hide behind another devotee so I wouldn't have to volunteer to go down the kitchen. And there was this other young man who had just started coming like a few weeks before, and he was like anyways, he was very sincere, but he'd only been coming a little while, and I was thinking, I'm better than him. I've been coming for a few years now, and those are thoughts that go on in the mind of a very extremely immature devotee. Sometimes I know for me. Anyway, but he was brand new, but he was like really enthusiastic about everything, chanting his japa and doing all kinds of service. And he was, I was trying to hide behind somebody else, and he was right out there in front, like, I'll go. And of course I got called on too. I couldn't really hide. And I went down the kitchen too, and I was fine. I went down there and cut the vegetables. It was no problem. I did it willingly once I knew I had to do it. And anyways, yeah, the tendencies of the mind are pretty. The mind can be pretty devious and very. Trying to avoid surrendering to Krishna. But yeah, the two main things are we just have to keep, main thing, the primary thing, the most basic thing is keep your attention straight ahead, and don't look side to side, and don't go side to side, because there'll be an accident. And I told that story because it sort of fit in with the other thing too. Yeah, there's danger, but we're not inevitably going to have trouble. All devotees will struggle some, except the most advanced devotee from a previous life or something like Bhakti Charu Maharaj or Radhanath Swami or Gopal Krishna Maharaj. It's not that everyone struggles with surrendering to Krishna, but the normal thing is that we struggle in surrendering. Okay, so why don't we stop now? All glories to Srila Prabhupada.